Thank you very much for being here. The recording is actually going to be something sent to people who are unable to be here. So we thank you for being here in person. There are a couple of things that we're going to try to do in 1 hour. And this is my only practice for doing it in 1 hour because tomorrow between services, the goal is 45 minutes. If I start at 9:45, at 10:30, most are leaving for worship. So this is going to be a test for us, and we'll see how it goes. All right, can we begin with a prayer, please? Heavenly Father, we know that without a vision that you provide, we will be distracted in the world, we will perish. We thank you for the vision that you have given us of your love that came through your Son, and for the ways and opportunities we have to be able to bring that love to others in our day and age. We thank you for the witnesses who have gone before us in the congregations we have been at, and especially at this one, for their commitment and faithfulness to the mission you have given them and today give to us. Guide us by your Spirit in our conversation. Help us to grow in faith even as we reflect on what you do with us and your church. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Again, thank you very much for coming. Karen, there should be, did you get your packet?
She can't find it. She's just looking.
Okay, then it would be alphabetical, Fran. It would be alphabetical if it's not on the top. So, in the bottom. All right, what I'd ask you to do is open up your folders, and if you would, pull out this, what's called the program document. You should have that there. Let me see, I'll be right back. So we're learning as we go what's going to be difficult. So, Vision for Mission is the title of this, Making a Difference, one person at a time. I'm not going to read all of this, obviously, to you, but what I will do is try to point out some things. So if you got a pencil or a pen or you want to look back on it, and we're going to be zipping through this, the reality is that very few of you have been at every presentation. And so I'm going to try to summarize as best I can, as quickly as I can, what the Vision for Mission program is all about. It's giving it's giving a context for what we're doing today. On that cover page, you see that it's really a description that we are called to be his hands in the world. God still does love the world. He still loves individuals, but he has given us that opportunity and responsibility to be his hands and his voice and his ears in the world. And what we're doing at Shepherd of the Woods is trying to live that out and making a difference one person at a time for them. And sometimes we're able to do it individually. You see someone in need, you can stop and change their tire. You can give them a glass of water. But when it comes to larger events and items that we're trying to accomplish, it takes the whole community. And this is one of those programs that really takes all of us working together. We could not achieve this alone. On the inside page, you see a note of mine, and it's really describing the fact that what's in this booklet is literally describing thousands of hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars. We accomplished a lot of things based on the gathering and the support and the commitment on the part of the members. Okay, thank you, Pastor. It is a Vision for the Mission program, and our goal, if you say, well, what's the goal with this? We have a mortgage payment of $227,000 a year. just under $19,000 a month. And the support for the Vision for Mission appeal pays that. Anything over and above that allows us to develop some of our strategic plans, of which we have many and varied over the years, and we're accomplishing them at times as the year goes on and as resources are available. You saw the temple or heard some of the temple talks. If you didn't see them or hear them in person, they were emailed to you. I hope you've looked at some of them, and perhaps you were in church but wanted to hear the perspective of some of the others. It was, I thought, an excellent way to describe our Matthew 25 care for others. We have been involved and supportive of the mission, and the more we're involved in it, the more blessed we are. So you may have read about the Peru mission trip. For those who have gone on it, the blessing is multiplied. It's not just a theory or look how excited they are or how blessed people are to receive our gifts, but when you participate in it, it is absolutely a phenomenal experience for a lifetime. So we are thankful for your participation in this, and we ask for your support. The next page, Vision for Mission Southside. This location was the beginning of the congregation back in actually 1979. In what's called a parachute drop, they sent a pastor before there were any people, and he said, what about doing some Lutheran ministry in the Bay Meadows area? A group of people gathered, and over the years they met in his house, and then across the street in a gymnasium of a school, and then in 1985 built the Fellowship Hall, which was a multi-purpose building. What you see there on that page is a listing of construction that basically continued every 2 years. Now you'd say, well, where did the money come from? Each generation of members contributed, and the ones that have been around here for a long time have participated in all of them. So it's not like, well, I would have to admit, honestly, when we did the first construction, we had been on mission support. We still were when we did the construction. We raised $33,000, and the whole budget of the church, the income of the church aside from that, was $82,000. So it was an extraordinary attempt, and it was successful, and I thought to myself, very honestly, boy, it doesn't get any better than this. And the first 1,000 feet was a bump out to the front, and it was a gathering area. We had never had one of those. One large room, which we made 3 Sunday school classrooms, an office for the pastor, and an office for the secretaries. And the very first Sunday, when we had worship, we had, for the first time in all the years I was here, the name tags inside the church. They would not fit anywhere in the church before that, so we had them outside. We had moved the table in, and I remember talking to a visitor who, he must have been 9 feet tall, but from the crick in my neck from talking to him, I was leaning up against the table with the name tags on it, talking to him because the room was full. And at the end of the service, I remember saying to somebody who I've forgotten, I said to them, we're going to have to re-congregate the building committee. And it occurred to me that that would not be the last thing we did, that once we did some construction, we would use it well. So what you see there is a commitment, a serious commitment on the members all those years. On the next page, what difference does the South Side location make? The commitment, the difference is not just what they did in that day, those 33 families, when they committed to building the Fellowship Hall there, that 4,000 square feet. That was not the limit of their impact. I mean, let's back it up, and the vote went the other way. Let's say the 33 people said, there's just no way. We don't have enough resources to be able to do this. And the pastor likely said something like, we will have other people. We will invite the future generations to help pay for this. Somehow they decided yes, but had they decided no and just bailed on it and there was no shepherd of the woods, think of the impact that would have been lost for the last 32 years. It's an extraordinary kind of picture. Each week here on this location alone, say, well, what difference does it make with the Southside property. Every week, 277 of our members and partners use this property. That's our staff, our people, our worship, our midweek service. On a regular basis, nearly 300 of our members cross paths, do something in this property. Think about it. Quilters, Meals on Wheels, fellowship, the ladies' Bible study, it goes on and on. In addition, 337 outside people, people who are not members of the church, people who are using our facilities with our standard that says if you're doing ministry, you can use our facilities at no charge. And they do. Some will make donations, but if they can't afford to do what they're doing and it's a good ministry, we will give them money to meet in our building. The most expensive, it would be a quiz question if I had more time, what's the most expensive building that we have? If you think of all the construction, both locations, which is the most expensive?
An empty building.
The one that's empty. If that's used an hour a week or an hour and a half a week, you got to divide it up and say how much per hour is it costing for that building, as opposed to a room that is used every single day. The school, the day school, the Shepherd Center, all of this is good stewardship, using what we've got and being a blessing, making a difference to the people who are here and using these facilities. The next page, we have the Lakeshore. You may well know that that's 40 acres. It was purchased in 2004 because this property no longer was possible to do ministry here well. We had people who could not park their cars. We had people who couldn't sit in the sanctuary. We were doing 3 services, and it did not fit anymore. And then we had additional dreams. We talked about wanting to do a day school, and that was very limited because all the rooms were being used. And twice, when that idea was brought forward, we had to say, it's not possible for us to do it. So in 2004, after building this room in what year? 2003. 2003, we actually built it in 2001. In 2003, voted to sell it. And that was the initial idea of buying the Lakeshore. We bought 40 acres, we put this up for sale, we were ready to move lock, stock, and barrel. And depending on who was interested in buying it, we checked things out. We had the movie theater prices scheduled, so if we had to get out of here right away, we could hold services down there. That's now, I think, I don't know if they're closed, down by the Avenues Mall. There was a group that wanted to put condos in. Imagine, they were going to clear this whole place. I actually contacted the makers of this building on what it would cost and what we would save to take it apart, lock, stock, and barrel, and move it down there. We tried everything. Ultimately, all 4 groups that came with intent on buying this property backed out. The last one, for a long time, they worked with us and then backed out at the last minute. At that point, the congregation reflected again, we all did, and brought forward the idea of becoming a multi-site congregation. Back in that time, there were only about 80 congregations in the United States that were multi-site, and only one other Lutheran one that we could find. And the idea was, you plant a church. Prior to that, the denomination did that. The ELCA would be the ones to buy land and plant a church, not an individual church. But it made sense to us because people, had appreciated what this gift was. Each one has advantages and disadvantages. The limit of 2.75 acres here compared to unlimited, what seems unlimited at times, 40 acres down there. All the administrative buildings here, nothing down there. Visibility on Southside Boulevard, invisible down there. So together, it was more of a tool than either one by itself. And so that was brought back to the congregation, and the vote was, in my history here, the only time I can remember it, the vote by the congregation was unanimous. to take this property off sale to become multi-site and develop that at the same time. It was developed much slower than we had planned, and some of the strategic dreams have not been fulfilled, but a tremendous asset for ministry. And you see some of that history. We're ecumenical, we'll try anybody. So the Methodists are known for their tent revivals. Our first worship center was a tent. Jesus, if he can be born in a barn, we can worship in a barn. And we took the barn and converted it into a sanctuary. We'll do anything to be able to get good use out of those facilities, and they are tremendously. On the next page, a little more description down there. 250 members and partners meet there each week, and another 250 from outside groups. 500 individuals are touched by the beauty of that location and by the gift of this congregation that they are allowed to use it. And there's very few times somebody will say, well, I was going to try to go down to Lakeshore, but there's a gate and I understand a lock. And I said, well, if you find it locked, let me know, because there's always people on that property. Break of dawn with the school through 6 o'clock, I think, when Pastor Peacock leaves, and on into the night with group meetings. The question, is this congregation making a difference in extraordinary ways with lives that are being touched all the time? Every one of the lives important. The next page, our school. Just an amazing impact that it has. And you see a number of facts there. 1,100 students, individual students, have been at our school since it was begun in 2006. 1,100. Now that's the beginning of the impact. That's the seed that's planted. That was the seed that was planted in Luther that began a reformation that continues to this day. His mother had a tremendous impact. The teachers are planting seeds of faith in these kids, 60% of which are not Christian. 60% not Christian. And so our teachers are planting seeds of faith, and the impact that will have on that child's entire life, on their parents, on what they do for a living, and their eternal life as they understand the love of God in Christ. So you see there an ongoing list. It's not a complete list of all the outside groups that use that. And if you have a heart for Scouts or NA or OA or Camera or singing or whatever it is, there are groups down there in using those facilities. The school itself has that impact all the time, both at the Lakeshore and here. We have preschool here, elementary school down at the Lakeshore, with a phenomenal setting for those kids to be growing as well. It's not just academic, it is faith-based. And that is an important part of why we do what it is. And the buses, our commitment to it is one sign of that. You said, well, are we really reaching out with that? The fact that we have 3 buses. Now, admittedly, the reason we have 3 is because only 2 will run at any one time. There's some rules about that, I says. But when we send out a bus that literally now can get an antique plate, it is 25 years old this year. We have a lot of work to do, but it's a commitment to say to parents who cannot bring their kids. I mean, we've talked about it. We get so frustrated at times with these older buses, and somebody will say, well, you know what, is this making much of a difference? Where a huge percentage of the kids here come by bus. Without that bus, this location closes. So we are doing all that we can, and the financial aid that's provided. 96 students since 2006, $330,000 over those 10 years or 11 years that we've been going. And they have made donations, and it's fun to see the kids learn about the care of others. When we do a chapel, we have an offering taken. And at the beginning of the year, there's almost nothing. The plate goes, the kids have no clue. And you begin to explain to them, here's a person who has no milk, and here's a cow that provides milk. You're learning about that. That's the academic stuff. In this part of the world, there are very poor people. In this part of the world, they are hungry. What are we going to do about this? And so we raise money and get a cow or a variety of ways of doing that. And over the years, since 2010, the students have raised $15,000. Nickels, dimes, pennies, dollars. The parents are learning about this. And in some of their faith backgrounds, if you're poor, it's because God put you there. And if you make a donation to help them out of poverty, you're contradicting God. You understand how that works? But not by the time these kids are finished. The giving just grows exponentially as the year goes on, where the kids, are teaching their parents about care for the poor. The next page, Peru Mission. I'll just say at this point, I don't know how many of you have been involved in a church, I was not, that has its own mission. In fact, has two missions, has a school as well. I did serve at a church with a school, but we had no mission globally like that. How many have been involved in multi-site congregations before this? I mean, the kinds of things that are going on, Maureen has, but that was unheard of when I was growing up. But the Peru Mission is an extraordinary development on our part. Again, denominations are struggling to find the place to plant a church. We, in our view, we knew that Lutheran, the name Lutheran in Peru, is considered a sect. It's called a sect there, and not looked on favorably as many of the others. Some of the Protestant denominations have different approaches. Well, we began by starting Lutheran Social Services of Tarma, LSST. And that's where the care of this congregation began for people. And the people in Tarma are looking at that and saying, wait a minute, we don't get that from our own church. We don't get that. We don't get help from our own country, from the government. And here's some group of people, some Lutherans, whatever that means. It means somebody cares about us 3,000 miles away, sending this support. And we began our mission trips. And then when people started asking, it's not unlike the people of Macedonia say, come over here and tell us about the faith. When people were asking for baptisms, that really was the tipping point, where you just say, we have to do more than simply feeding the body, but feeding the spirit. And that's when we began with Pastor Araujo. And now we have two ministry sites. One that was built by the community back in the 1930s, and the other one in Tarma, which we started ourselves. So we have two sites that he serves every Sunday. How will that be firmed? A couple of years ago, we purchased property there. It has a house on it. They do worship in it. They do Sunday school. Now there's a summer program. There will be after school. If you could move it here, it is exactly what we're doing at Shepherd of the Woods and the other locations. Everything they're doing there is what we want to be doing here. And to a certain extent, when you say, all right, Shepherd of the Woods 1, Shepherd of the Woods 2, Shepherd of the Woods 3, and Shepherd of the Woods 4, that the same core principles are in operation at all four locations where we serve. So, the Lutheran Social Services, you see some of the reports there and the kind of, we've been to Peru 22 times, and there have been over 250 missioneros. If you go, you are officially known as a missionero. And you're on a mission trip. You are providing the care of Christ. You are experiencing the kindness of those people. You will never have the same relationship with the Peru mission afterwards. We then moved into, over the weeks you've been hearing about, Matthew 25. How do we do this? I was hungry and you gave me food. On that next page, you see some of the pictures of the way this congregation does that and how we provide for the hungry. On the next page, you see a listing there, Meals on Wheels and migrant workers and social services and 555 program, and it goes on and on. There ought not to be hungry people when our shelves are full. It's a distribution issue, and we're gonna assist with this. Now, I don't know how many years ago it was. Maybe Pastor Phillips can remember the last time we talked about this. How many of these could we do? Well, nobody can do all of them, but somebody can do some of them. So you may have a heart for hungry people in America, and you're going to make your donation when that is, or in our neighborhood, or because you have been to Peru, you know what hunger is like there. There is no Social Security. There is no retirement. You work, you eat. You don't, you die. No government supports. It may be what you consider not sufficient in America, but compared to what it is in Peru, they will just leave you on the street, and it is sad to see. A phenomenal kind of care there. I was thirsty, and we tried to distinguish, okay, at our church, how can we highlight the difference between hunger and thirst? You'd be thirsty for a drink of water. We have only put in one well, gotten one well working, and that was a long time ago back in Lima. Up in Tarma right now, ask for your prayers. There are floods going on, tremendous floods, and down in Lima, it is horrendous. People are dying and homes are being washed away. Up in Tarma, it's up in the mountains. They do get rain up there in the Andes, and the plants are growing well, but thirsty for the word is what we were focusing on. And what you see there in the pictures are gathered groups of people. Vacation Bible School, the school, adult study, in worship, on retreats. All of it has to do with the word, and we make sure that that word is shared even with something that we call Faith Matter Devotions. Now, I can just tell you where that started. You may have come late into it. That's been produced since 2005. December of 2005, and it was a reflection on my part that no matter how many Bible studies we listed up, as a percentage of the congregation, who's got time every Wednesday or Tuesday morning or whatever? Nothing is very convenient for anybody. So with 60% of our members not coming with a transfer, not having been active in a previous church prior to getting to us, 60%, those people need the word. They can't come to us, we're going to come to them. And that's where that started. So the word is a crucial thing, and we're trying to get it out to people even daily. The next reflection was on the stranger, how you welcome them. Interesting pictures. You see the variety of ways and waving. The top right picture there, does anybody know, besides Carl and the ones who were there, Susan and George Bodenshots, who that guy is on the left? Anybody know that face?
That's David.
That's Pastor Wendell. Yes, it is. The ELCA assistant to the bishop, who came to our church for the first time. And I had been in contact with him back and forth and describing the ministry of Shepherd of the Woods and what we're about. And timing-wise, he was going to preach at all the services. I said, well, we're out front waving. And he said, oh, I heard about that. There was one church I knew a long time ago that I think used to do that. And so we were set up to meet at 8 o'clock. I said I'd be here at 8 o'clock and meet him before the 8:30 service. And it's 8:05, and it's 8:10, it's 8:15, it's 8:20. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm ready with a sermon, but, you know, just in case he doesn't show up. And then I see that he's out front waving. He's out front waving. He wanted the opportunity to do what this congregation was doing. It led somebody else to that. So I have no doubt. He sure looks happy there. So I'm pleased that you guys allowed him, because we do have standards, you know. I mean, you know, those that give the princely wave, we don't. But anyway, thank you for welcoming him there. We don't want people to be strangers on the next page. There are a variety of entry points, but boy, how important it is how you welcome somebody. If this congregation does not welcome people when they come for the first time, it's the only chance, because very likely they will not be back a second time. We have so much to offer. Please do your best to welcome them. Read through that. I was naked and you clothed me. There have been a variety of humorous conversations I've had about, did you get the stuff about being naked? You know, that note had to be modified as I emailed that in case it was picked up by somebody else. You see the variety of things there. The clothing that is from the garage sale, almost given away. In the middle top picture, the uniforms. That's not just clothing a naked person. That's a person whose life is naked. They are about to lose a year of school. Now imagine that if any of you had a child who was sick and they were out for a couple of weeks, imagine out for a year, the children who do not have a uniform do not get to go to school. It's state run, it is require a uniform to be there. And so imagine the impact on that child, on what they do for a living, on what their spouse is, on what their children can learn. It goes on and on. And so your generous clothing of those children is just tremendous. And then, of course, the quilts, the beautiful quilts that are just extraordinary. The interest and willingness to do that, covering the sanctuary and up off the balcony and down off the lakeshore. All the you saw them this year, the quilts that were here covering every pew, and the rest of them, and it wasn't all of them, the rest of them and up on the balcony down at the lakeshore as well. So the gift of that and the opportunity you have to simply cut squares if you're not able to do the rest. So migrant workers get clothing, whatever it is. On the next page, you see the description of that. The next page, I was sick and you visited me. We do visit the shut-ins. I wonder if you can tell who that is on the bottom left on those pictures. Anybody recognize anybody there? Pastor Phillips, is that so? Well, kind of. Well, hair's a little darker now, but I mean, aside from that, she is really representing all of you. She didn't go there because she had nothing else to do and wandered around and met some lady in Peru. This was sent by this congregation, prayed for by this congregation, and her visitation for people who are sick, that is the building called the Beneficencia, where older people just are kind of housed. How long was she there? Just about her, yeah. Some of them their whole life. They come in as children. They have children and adults, and they come in, and sometimes they stay there their whole lives. The family has abandoned them, and it's a very small group. Sometimes I get on edge, but especially when people misuse their authority and their power and their resources. And when we first met the Beneficencia, we were going to use the building they had across the street. They actually were helping fewer people than the number of administrative personnel they had in the Beneficencia. This was a lucrative thing. When the next politicians come in, they get to appoint people to places, and so not a lot. We went in and provided bunk beds for the kids, painted the building. They had tremendous resources, but none of it was going to the kids. And we worked out we got close, and then I can remember that conversation. We went there a second trip that year to try to discuss with them and finalize the plans. Well, next thing you know, what's your budget like, and what's this? And I finally realized they were not interested in our helping the kids. They just wanted to see what resources they could get from us. And that was the end of it. And so then we started looking for our own land. So visiting the shut-ins, you can be part of that. We have a number of members who visit regularly. Some of our shut-ins, the pastors as well visit. That was one example pulled out on the next page. The month of February, this last month, the pastoral and visitation teams made 87 visits to sick people. Members of the church, visitors, people we don't know, you let us know somebody who needs a visit, and we are there. That's what this congregation does in caring for people. Next, I was in prison. We thought about this. We don't do a Kairos ministry. Anybody ever involved in that? Where you go and serve. They have a whole program they do which ends week after week after week. In the last week, they actually bring in cookies for the inmates, but they are supposed to distribute them to other inmates. It was a whole learning process, and it was to be shared and how they use the gifts that God gives them. So a great program, but we don't do that. When we thought about, what prisoners do we know? Actually, we know a lot. There are a tremendous number, 300 people in prison visit our facilities every week. They are prisoners to their own addictions. We have anonymous groups that meet at our facilities at all hours of the day and night. late at night. I mean, we were going to set up next door for tomorrow, except there's a group that meets in there on a Saturday night, every Saturday night. And they are struggling to find their way out of addictions which have caused them to lose their homes, their families, their jobs, just about everything. And they're lost. They are in prison. They're in bondage to those. And we provide those places, both locations, for those people who are really in need. And then you see the other, buying wheelchairs. We have done that. And build ramps. Somebody's a prisoner of their house. They can't get out anymore. Their body is given out, and they have no way to get out. On the next page, you see some of those descriptions and the spiritual bondage, etc., that people have. I want to now move to this mortgage. In reality, I began by saying it was $227,000, and there's nothing less exciting than paying a mortgage unless you are experiencing the gifts of what that mortgage does. On that last page, you see there a picture of our home. There's your home. The things that happen there. Now, you can complain about a mortgage, but what does it allow you to do? It's a place for eating meals. Oh, you could eat out all the time. You gather your family. Teaching for life, study of life, care for each other, family fun, rest, sleeping at night, celebrations, serving. It's a home for you. The church, in the same way, instead of one family paying one mortgage of $1,000 or $2,000 a month or whatever it is, and serving one family, we have 306 families just of this congregation and hundreds of families of people who visit us on a regular basis. Sometimes it starts with just Easter or Christmas. Other times they came across us somehow, and the next thing you know, they're visiting more regularly and become members, and that is 19,000. So we have one family. If it were a $1,000 mortgage, that's one family. We have 306. It doesn't seem beyond the realm of possibility for us together to support that, and we ask people to do that. We serve 1,100 people a week. When you add up all of our members, groups that are using it, outside groups that use it, it averages 1,100 people per week are in these facilities. That is a good use of resources. And you see, of course, and know the things that we are doing there. So that is pretty much what I wanted to describe about our program and what it is that we're trying to do as we gather here, and how you can assist with this. The next thing I'd ask you to pull out is a pledge sheet called Vision for Mission. I want to talk a little bit about this. It should have some boxes, so it looks like this without notes on it. Here it is, it looks like that. Okay, here we are, making a difference. The reality is, I think what I've learned, if nothing else in my life, is that I'll spend whatever I have. I just do. And so back when it was $40 a week, I spent every dollar of that back in Brooklyn. And that was the income we could live on. Now that's like dinner, you know. I mean, it boggles my mind when I think about the changes that have occurred in Chris's and my life. But one thing that hasn't is that I tend to spend whatever we have. I save a little, but what resources we have are going to be put into use. And there's always that suggestion that you take a look at your checkbook. I only list maybe 10 things a year in there. Mine is Quicken. I don't know if you use that, but you pull up the annual report and it will tell you what your priorities are. It'll tell you that immediately. What's the ordering of what's important to you, and how is that appropriate? Are there things that are out of line? You know, I enjoy Starbucks. You start to add that up. I even take just the regular coffee. I've never had a foo-foo drink there, you know, and so I don't have nerve to order it. A Frappuccino with what, you know, I can't do it. I can't do it. Just give me a venti, you know, bold, you know, whatever it is. And that's $2.42. And you do that twice in a week, and it's $5. You do it 4 times a week, it's $10. And begins to add up. And I've cut back on that. I just say, you know, I can get the coffee here, I can get it at home, and I do anyway in addition. But we hope that the vision for mission, the mission of this church and what it's accomplishing, that as you look at those things, there's something or many things that touch you that say it's worth making that a priority. We cannot do this without the support of the members and believing that this is a priority for them as well as for the rest of us. Now, here it is in the middle of the pledge form, your opportunity to make a difference, to have an impact in the world. This giving is for 2 years. It is over and above budget. And sometimes people are a little questioning, well, I'm used to a unified budget. I'll give you the money, you decide how to spend it. In our case, with all the construction, with all the development that's going on, we have that's in a substantial part of the budget, $227,000. Our regular budget's about $500,000. So just say, well, we're going to do a budget of $750,000 or whatever. It would be a real challenge. So we are dividing this. If you are wondering, and people will ask about that, what I'm going to be showing you in a second relates to 2%. If our members, and that was checked out many years ago, the average income, based on this zip code, one of the companies that helped us through, indicated the average giving, and if that average holds true at Shepherd of the Woods, 2% of income, whatever your income is, 2% will allow us to develop the vision for mission, even allowing beyond that some strategic development. The goal you heard, $227,000, $450,000 over 2 years, and development of strategic as it's allowed. If you will, keep that in front of you and then turn to the other page, the bright yellow one. This is the giving calculator. The question, of course, comes, what would be appropriate? What is, somebody could say, my resources, we have members who are on absolutely challenged situations where they have incurred debt that they should not have and they're trying to get out of. There are some of our members who are out of work right now. We have some of our members who are on food stamps. We have some of our members who are on limited resources that make it difficult to imagine how they would be able to survive. We also have members who are at the other end of the spectrum. We actually had, anybody want to guess what the largest contribution was to a Vision for Mission program in the history that we've been doing it? $150,000. And it was not by a member. So it's not like, well, I wonder who that member was. This was not a member. Not me. I don't know. I'm still a member. So it's none of us. But that person was committed. They had a family member who was a member of the church and committed to that, heard what the mission was and said, yes, that will make a difference in the world, and we're thankful for that. There are people who are leaders of companies. So the issue is not the amount, but as it said back on the pledge form, equal sacrifice. That there ought to be. I remember somebody telling me one time, we have found a way that we're going to be able to contribute to the Vision for Mission. We had a regular amount, but then we were able to add to it because what we did was cancel our lawn service. And for the next 3 years, at that time it was a 3-year program, for the next 3 years, I am going to cut my own lawn. And I'm going to save every month the amount that they were going to require of me. I'm going to sacrifice my time and energy, which was good for the person, a healthy thing to do. But nonetheless, it began to make me think, when does it become a commitment? When does it become a commitment for us? I think it's only when it's a sacrifice. That if it's less than a sacrifice, if it's just a tip I leave, it didn't, somebody needed something, you say, oh, sure, here, take that. Didn't touch my heart at all. I didn't have to go in my wallet at all. Really, a sacrifice is what ties us to the mission, where we can say, yes, my commitment makes this difference in my life. So I ask you to really think about that, how you can make a difference and where it becomes sacrifice for you. Can you find something that can be given up in order, or a choice that you made. Yep, that's really the best one, but this one is good. That'll be okay, and I can transfer that over to a priority that I believe in. All right, on this chart, it's laid out based on the 2%. Okay, on the average of the 2%, how would we give it? The left-hand chart is really looking at annual income. Some people prefer this. I'd like to find where my income. So my income is $40,000. I can give $15 a week. That's not a huge amount. I'll be darned if that's 2%. $67 a month I could give. And that will total $1,600 over the 2 years. No, that's not bad. Or $60,000, $23 a week, $100 would be $2,400, and that's 2% of income. That's for many, that is not a huge amount. And so therefore, some people said, well, is there another way to look at this? The chart on the right is based on deciding, I think I could give, let's say, $25,000 over the 2 years. I think that I have enough support for this, I have enough resources, and in this case, the resources are less likely to be, at least for some of us, we try to do it this way, where it comes from our income, but for some, it's not there. It's going to come from an investment, an asset. There's this pile of money, and it's going to be sufficient to get us to 93 when we die, and or whatever legacy we want to leave to others. And there's that money, and I would like to contribute that. If it were $25,000, obviously 2 annual gifts of $12,500, or $1,000 a month, or $240 a week. That's another way to look at it if you decide there's an amount that you're trying to reach, and that's one of the ways to do it. We do suggest here some ways to give. You can write a check if anybody is still doing that. You can give cash if anybody has cash. You can use the Care Square. Here at Southside, it's in the office, and you just run your credit card, you tell them how much you want to give, you run your credit card, and you get your points. So it's not quite a sacrifice totally, but it will work, and that's nothing bad about points that you earn. You can online bill pay so that it's regularly taken out, and we have quite a number of people who do that, and it's, hopefully you're still thinking about it when it's done. And then creative giving, donations of gifts. The last thing at the bottom is initial gift giving ideas. The initial gift is to allow us to get a head start on this. So we ask you to consider, besides, I'm going to give, $50 a month, and I would like to give at least something to start with before I get into that regular giving. I've got some pot somewhere, a bonus I got from work, or some interest. What kind of a basis can you use for it? Some suggestions. You give the interest amount for 1 month on your investments. So you just look at where you are in your investment account, and at the end of the month, it went up this much. If it went down, we'll give, I don't think that's the plan. So if it goes up, you might take that for 1 month and just make that contribution. It might be fun enough where you say, I'm going to do that. If I had this much money at the end of 2 years, that's more than I can use anyway, so I'm going to just do the interest. That'd be a way to do it. Or I'm going to give up a dinner out or a drive-through for a week or a month, or $1, depends on how old you are, $1, $5, $10 per year for your age. I mean, that, maturity counts for something, so, be proud of it. Or the grandkids, decide an amount, $5, $50, $100 per grandchild. Thanks be to God. So it's kind of named in their honor. For Cam, he's going to be remembered by doing something like that. Okay, if you go back to the pledge form, there it is, the goal, and we're going to do this how? 1, initial gift. There is an envelope in your packet, and hopefully you saw that somewhere, and I may well, there it is. I've lost mine. This is for any initial giving. And you say, when? You can give it tonight. If you're going to worship tonight, if you've prayerfully considered what you can contribute, you fill it out, fold it up, put it in the offering plate today. You can make your initial gift anytime that you would like to. That initial gift, you see on the form there, it's going beyond your pledge. It's not part of the pledge. You're going to give $10 a week. It's $1,004 or whatever it would be. Yeah, I think 104 weeks times 10, $1,040. But I'm going to give 50 as an initial gift to get started on this pledge amount. There you write it, and then transfer it over to the totals. What date are you going to give it? Well, a month from now, when tax returns come in, I'm going to be able to give something. I'm going to give it then. That'll be the initial gift. Then, in addition to any initial gift, pledge how much to be given in the following manner. So the total amount would go in there. I'm going to give $1,000 over 2 years. You write that 1,000 in the box to the right. How are you going to do that? I'm going to just give one-time gift there, you see at the bottom, or I'm going to give whatever that amount would be per week, and you use the giving calculator to take a look at that, or per month, or twice a month, quarterly, annually, it doesn't matter, but let us know what that is. So when we are doing our planning, we know if, for example, last month, the income to the Vision Fund was $13,000. Anybody remember, after all this talking, what the mortgage payment is a month?
Almost 19.
Almost 19,000. Let me see, 13 in, 19 out, minus 6,000. So knowing that that was going to be the case, we looked at what people were pledging and when they were going to give, and we recognized the fact that it is heavy loaded at the front end, and that by the time you get to the last months of the appeal, there will be less. People have finished their giving. Somebody already gave their amount for the entire year, gave that in January. So it's helpful to know how you're going to go about giving that. Again, as always, with any pledging, you're being a steward of what you have right now. You lose your job, you have a problem, you got physical issues, you can't complete it. You don't need an excuse. Just let us know that I was hoping and expecting I was going to be able to do that. I can't. Send that note in, that'll be deducted, and we will plan accordingly based on what we know is going to be happening. The third one, so that gets transferred to the right. Then the third one are other ways. We have people who have given jewelry, who have given timeshares, who have given property, a variety of ways of doing this. This is a general number. I think this jewelry is worth $200. I'm not going to use it for anything. So you write down jewelry, $200. You put $200 over there. We get it appraised at Espling Jewelers. Mary Espling is down at the Lakeshore. Her family has the Espling Jewelers. They give us a price. They decide what to do with it. So you put that in, and then the total at the bottom. Grand total to be given, number 1, number 2, number 3, total it up. All is clear. Sometimes it gets confusing. Hopefully this will help that. So we have the initial and the regular pledge and any other pledging. You certainly can do it today in the offering plate. Next week, Appeal Sunday is April 2nd. That is the time we're going to focus on that. The lessons will be on it, and we will celebrate in the afternoon with a picnic, just celebrating the gifts that we have received from God and from you all. And then the follow-up is April 9th, which is already Palm Sunday. And Easter upon us. So we did get it in before the end of the night and before Easter. Okay. Last thing I would mention before I take any questions, and to those who don't get a question answered or you don't want to ask it out in public, feel free. Send me an email, give me a call. I'll be around afterwards, so we can certainly talk. But we're trying to stick to our hour, of which we have 6 minutes. The last thing I'd mention is the strategic dreams. You'll remember that when we purchased that, we really planned to have $2.7 million from the sale of this property to be able to use and develop down there. So some of those initial strategic dreams, of which we had 5 design plans, architecture plans, for a chapel, for fellowship, for administrative, for worship. It was all laid out. Obviously, we've modified those. But there are other things, and the list is fairly long, about things that we might do with resources that are available. In the history of this church, we have received only one gift from a will, and that has of particular amount just recently, and that was $75,000. And that was a real gift from one of our members. Remembering that in your will is a way to let your legacy have an impact in the future for this congregation. Okay. All right, questions? Must have 100. I've overwhelmed you, or I've answered every question. Yes, Susan. I'm rubbing your nose. I'm sorry. Any questions? Well, I thank you for your time, for your interest, your willingness to be here. I just want to tell you that, I kind of feel bad about this. I don't know, those of you who have been involved in these before, because the thing missing this year is Maggiano's. Are you kidding me? I cannot believe that we are doing this in this beautiful sanctuary, but no Maggiano's? I can't believe, we discussed it back and forth, and anybody at the last Maggiano's, the one where the baptismal party was next door, oh my God. Even I thought, boy, that was not the best of those resources, because who could hear the TV or anything? It was terrible. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. And so we have opted for convenience, many more of them, but food, you're on your own. So you've been very good. I give you authority. Go to a restaurant tonight and enjoy yourself. If you want to go to Maggiano's, do that, okay? Get me some spumoni, please. All right, if not, let's close with a prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all that you have done with your church for thousands of years, and the extraordinary things you have done with this little congregation, a mission church in Bay Meadows that still believes it is in mission. We thank you for the vision, the insight that you have given us in the ways that we can attempt to do things that may be even scary, but are possible because your hand is behind it. We thank you for all the commitment on the part of the members of the past, and pray that you would help us as we decide how the mission continues in this day through us. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, thank you very much. I think we're done. Let that be noted somewhere with 2 minutes to spare, as God is